Lucy.
Tatiana, Fiona, you can see there if you want. Christian, you can just turn around. Paige, Victoria O, Jack, Alex, and Tyler. Just come over and sit around my desk there too. There's spaces over there to walk around. Walk around.
Jack, move.
Say, excuse me, follow Paige and walk around. I don't think you're going to be able to see there. You want to make sure that you can see the book. Can you come sit right here? Please stand move forward so she can sit there. Hallie, come on. Make sure you're sitting on your bottom so everyone can see. I'll hold the book up, so don't worry. Sit down. Okay, I'm going to warn you. It's kind of sad. Okay, it's kind of... Shh. It's kind of sad. Okay, but I'm reading this because I want you to bring out your feelings. Because I want you... What do I always say in math? My favorite things in math are what? Tatiana, when you can relate it to real life. So if you can relate, if you can put your... You can put yourself in this little boy's shoes. Maybe you'll understand a little bit better. Okay? Okay, Henry's Freedom Box. Just looking at the cover. Does this boy look very young? Yeah. It says it's a true story from the Underground Railroad. We're going to learn about that. By Ellen Levine. Henry Brown wasn't sure how old he was. Henry was a slave, and slaves weren't allowed to know their birthdays. Can you imagine not being able to know your birthday? Raise your hand if you've ever had a birthday party. Can you imagine, can you imagine not being able to celebrate your birthday? Not even knowing when your birthday was? Oh no, wouldn't that be kind of sad? Henry and his brothers and sisters worked in the big house where the master lived. Henry's master had been good to Henry and his family, but Henry's mother knew things could change. Do you see those leaves blowing in the wind? They were torn from the trees like slave children and torn from their families. Don't worry about the pictures. I'll show them to you after I'm done reading it. Is anybody, Maddie, do you want to make a prediction after hearing that? So remember, that's our prediction. So we got to remember, we're going to see if our prediction comes true. Uh-oh. One morning, the master called for Henry and his mother. They climbed up the wide staircase. The master lay in bed with only his head above the quilt. He was very ill. He beckoned them to come closer. Some slaves were freed by their owners. Henry's heart beat fast. Maybe the master would set him free. What do you think? No. Thumbs up, thumbs down. No. But the master said, "You are a good worker, Henry. I am giving you to my son. You must obey him and never tell a lie." Henry nodded, but he didn't say thank you. That would have been a lie. So what do you think? Hannah, did our prediction come true? Unfortunately. How do you think Henry's feeling? Tatiana, how's Henry feeling? Well, he said that he would have said thank you to be respectful, but then he would have been lying. Because he doesn't appreciate being given away, taken from his mother. Later that day, Henry watched a bird soar high above the trees. Free bird, happy bird, Henry thought. Henry said goodbye to his family. He looked across the field. The leaves swirled in the wind. Remember when his mother told the story about the leaves being torn from the branches? Now he's being torn from his family. Henry worked his new master's factory. He was good at his job. "Do not tear that tobacco leaf," the boss yelled at the new boy. He poked the boy with a stick. If you made a mistake, the boss would beat you. Emily? Henry was lonely. One day he met Nancy, who was shopping for her mistress. They walked and talked and agreed to meet again. Henry felt like singing, but slaves didn't dare sing in the streets. Instead, he hummed all the way. Why can't they sing? Because slaves don't have any rights. Can't do anything. Months later, Henry asked Nancy to be his wife. When both their masters agreed, Henry and Nancy were married. Soon, there was a little baby, and then another, and another. Henry knew they were very lucky. They lived happy, even though they had different masters. But Nancy was worried. Her master had lost a great deal of money. "I'm afraid he will sell our children," she said. Henry sat very still. Because you remember when he was little, he was sold. Now he's afraid it's going to happen to his children. Let's make another prediction. Callie, what do you think? Do you think his children are going to be separated from him? Who agrees? Thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm hoping that's no, but I don't know. Henry worked hard all morning. He tried to forget what Nancy had said. He's trying to focus on his work, but it's hard to. His friend James came into the factory. He whispered to Henry, "Your wife and children were just sold in the slave market." "No!" cried Henry. Henry couldn't move. He couldn't think, and he couldn't work. "Twist that tobacco," the boss poked Henry. Henry twisted tobacco leaves. His heart twisted in his chest. Uh-oh. Alex, was our prediction right?
It's part of it.
Mostly. At lunchtime, Henry rushed to the center of town. A large group of slaves was tied together. The owner shouted at them. Henry looked for his family. "Father! Father!" Henry watched his children disappear down the road. Where was Nancy? He saw her the same moment she saw him. When he wiped away his tears, Nancy too was gone. So not only did he lose his children, Fiona, who else did he lose? His wife. So he went from having a whole family to none. Can you imagine your whole family being taken away? Henry no longer sang. He couldn't hum. He went to work, and at night he ate supper and went to bed. Henry tried to think of happy times, but all he could see were the carts carrying away everyone he loved. Henry knew he would never see his family again. Many weeks passed. One morning, Henry heard singing. A little bird flew out of a tree into the open sky, and Henry thought about being free. But how? As he lifted a crate, he knew the answer. He asked James and Dr. Smith to help him. Dr. Smith was a little white man who thought slavery was wrong. They met early the next day at an empty warehouse. Henry arrived with a box. Cece, what do you think's gonna happen?
Henry's like singing the box and
What's the title of our story?
Henry's Freedom Box.
They met early the next day at an empty warehouse. Henry arrived with a box. "I will mail myself to a place where there are no slaves," he said. James stared at the box, then at Henry. "What if you cough and someone hears you?" "I will cover my mouth and hope," Henry said.
Smart.
He is a smart guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Dr. Smith wrote on the box, "To William H. Johnson, Arch Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Henry will be delivered to friends in Philadelphia." Then he printed on the crate in big letters, "This side up with care." Or fragile, but with care also means handle it with care. Don't throw the box around. Do you think that they're going to obey that and not throw the box around?
No.
Who thinks that they're going to obey it? Thumbs up. Uh-oh. And Henry is in this box. Uh-oh.
How does he breathe?
Henry needed an excuse to stay home, or the work boss would think he had run off. James pointed to Henry's sore finger, but Henry knew it wasn't bad enough. He opened a bottle of oil, of virtual. "No!" cried James. Henry poured it on his hand. It burned his skin to the bone. Now the boss would have to let him stay home. Dr. Smith bandaged Henry's hand. They arranged to meet the next morning at 4 o'clock. He would do anything to be free, even burn his hand so bad. The sun was not up yet when Henry climbed into the box. "Ready?" he said. James nailed down the lid. Dr. Smith and James drove to the station. The railway clerk tipped the box over and nailed a paper to the bottom. Dr. Smith begged the clerks to be careful, but they didn't listen. They threw the box into the baggage car. Henry is in this box, remember that. Hours passed. Henry was lifted up and thrown again, upside down. He heard waves splashing. This must be the steamboat headed for Washington, D.C. The ship rode smoothly, but Henry was still upside down. Blood rushed to his head. His face got hot. His eyes ached. He thought his head would burst, but he was afraid to move. Someone might hear him. I know a lot of you can't sit still for more than 5 minutes. Can you imagine being in a box, all crammed up in a ball for this long?
Well, I could sleep.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. I could sleep.
"I'm afraid of standing," someone said. "Why don't we move that box and sit on it?" said another. Henry held his breath. Could they be talking about his box? Henry was pushed. The box scraped the deck. Now he was on his right side. Now his left side. And suddenly, right side up.
Yeah.
"What do you think is in here?" said the first man. "Mail, I guess," said the other. "I am mail," thought Henry. But not that kind that they imagined. Henry was carried off the steamboat and placed in a railroad car, this time head up. He fell asleep to the rattling song of the train wheels. He is mail, right?
Yes.
Just not paper mail.
Yeah.
He awoke to loud knocking. "Henry, are you all right in there?" "All right," he answered. The cover was pried open. Henry stretched and stood up. 4 men smiled at him. "Welcome to Philadelphia." At last, Henry had a birthday. March 30th, 1849. His first day of freedom. And from that day on, he also had a middle name. Everyone called him Henry Box Brown.
I like that.
Okay. How is that sad? How is that sad? Victor's saying, how is that sad? Alicia? Alicia, how is that sad? He would do anything just to be free. If you think about it, life as a slave is not very pretty. You get worked to the bone. You think you do a lot of work in here in school? All right, what I want to do, I want you to quietly go back to your seats and we're going to do a little activity. Okay, so let's do our tiptoes back to the seat.